welcome to this webinar. This webinar is called Clear Writing, Simple Steps for Making Your Communication Clear. So let me do that. So before I get started with the webinar, I have a couple of housekeeping things I want to do. First of all, I want to thank DCL for stepping in and helping us out here. This is so gracious and so wonderful of DCL to help. So who is DCL? Well, DCL is a company that converts and organizes content to create electronic documents, populate databases, publish on the web, basically get all of your content ready for tomorrow's technology. I think we've all noticed in the last few years the world has changed. Perhaps you were taking a nap and you woke up and you noticed it's changed. It has changed. And legacy content is still an important asset. And perhaps the idea of converting it to get it ready for tomorrow's technology makes you want to take a nap. I don't blame you. It's a lot. DCL services can help you refine your document conversion strategy, identify document redundancy, extract metadata, transform, just get it all ready to go. So just a fantastic company. They can go from any format to any format and help you get ready for things like ebooks. I think we're all looking at content anymore and going, ebooks, this is going to be coming, and many other things. They also serve a broad client base, so they're not just Johnny on the spot who just showed up last week. And they span all kinds of industries as well. So let's all thank DCL very much. Hey, wait, why is that doing that? Hold on, guys. We have some sort of weird timing issue thing, and we're just going to stop that because I don't know why we've got that going on. We're going to just advance these things manually. Sorry about that, guys. I have absolutely no idea why that was happening, but we're going to stop that. Hey! Okay. I don't know why this is doing this, but again, we're going to manually. Okay, fine. Good. Save. Save. I have no idea why this is doing that, but let's see if we can make it stop, because that's really rude. I am not liking this, and I have no idea why it's doing that. Okay. Let's see if that just stopped. Okay, so now that we've taken care of DCL, let's do a little bit of webinar mechanics. So how is this all going to work? This is, I am not happy. If you're muted, sorry, I have no idea why this is happening. Let me work this out. I just did this a few moments ago, and it was not doing this, and for some reason, this is doing that. And advance slide manually. Let's show it there. Good. Everything is fine. This should all be working just fine. And I have no idea why this is walking forward. Advance slide on mouse click. Okay. Georgina, are you managing the people? Georgina, are you managing the questions? That would be perfect. All right, so let's just try this. And sorry, guys, one more thing. And set up slideshow. Perfect. We're just going to do it this way. That should be working just fine. Sorry about that. I honestly walked this through just a little bit ago. Okay, so how's this all going to work? This, I'm Sharon Burton. And I think we've got it sorted out now. I'm a content consultant, which means if you've got problems with your content, if you're not sure what to do, I frankly get phone calls that says, hello, we're messed up and we'd like to be fixed and we don't even know how to start. That's the kind of stuff I do. I've been in the tech-com industry for 20 years. I teach pretty much anywhere. I teach technical communication to engineering students at the University of California, Riverside. I teach in the Technical Communication Certificate Program at UCR Extension. I teach business writing for the University of Redlands, and then I do custom training programs for clients. So it all I spend a lot of time teaching as well as consulting for people. This webinar, as you probably know, you are muted. So if you have been shouting, hoping that I would hear you and trying to get our attention, it hasn't been working because you're muted. If you have questions, and we absolutely are hoping that you will have questions, go to your GoToWebinar panel, type your questions in the questions area, and I will be answering questions at the end. If you have issues, etc., that's a good place to type them as well. We are, in fact, recording this webinar. Now, I want to assure you that none of your personal information appears in the final recording, and tomorrow you will be getting a link to the recording. You'll get a link. You can absolutely share that with people. I want you to feel perfectly comfortable doing that. We have no problems with that. We should be done at the top of the hour. I know you have a busy day. I have a busy day. However, if there are a lot of questions at the top of the hour, and you can stay, I can stay, and we can do questions, frankly, until you're out of questions or we all get bored. So we can absolutely do that. I got no problems with that. And again, let us say thank you for DCL. They're supporting us today. If you have questions, perhaps you're not getting sound, etc., Georgina is supporting me while I'm doing this. So if you have technical issues, she's happy to help. If you have questions for me as I go, I'll be looking for those questions again at the end. And let's say thank you for Data Conversion Labs for hosting this webinar. This is just fantastically good. I did have a question early on asking if these slides are available. The slides are in fact available. They're up on SlideShare, and they're up there right now. So they are absolutely available. And I'll be repeating that at the end because we're going to have people watch here. All right, so by the way, there's a tweet tag, a hashtag, hashtag clear writing. So if you guys are interested, if I say something, I don't know, interesting, and you feel like sharing it, that would be a hashtag that would be a good one to use. But there's no rules here because it's social media and it's kind of fun, and there's not necessarily a whole lot of rules in social media. All right, so let's start with audience and communication. What is communication? Now, here's a Wikipedia definition, which is really big, and I don't expect you to do, any actual reading on that because it's just really big. But this is a definition of communication. Basically, it's the activity of conveying meaningful information. I think we all know that intuitively. So what does that big block of text mean? Really what it means is what we need to convey has to be meaningful, to the point, clear to our audience with no extra noise. And I think we've all looked at communication in our lives and gone, I don't know what this means. I have no idea what the point is, and there are so many words here that my head hurts. That's not an effective communication, and we need to communicate effectively. So what does an effective communication require? Well, it requires a sender, a message, and an intended recipient. And here's something that I know you all know this, but it really is important to state. We are all in this world busy people, and the people with whom we are communicating are also very busy. So there's a lot of busy going on. Very often, in the business world certainly, we are communicating in a written sort of way to communicate our message, to convey that message. The beauty of a written communication, of course, is it provides a record of our communication. But let's also think about the communications that we're doing in videos and podcasts and webinars, for example. All of the ways that we communicate. So I like to think of the written communication as the base from which we start, but it's only the place that we start. Communications are happening in all kinds of ways. So here's something to think about. People want communication in the way that they prefer to get communication. So what does that mean? One of the most important things we can know about our readers, the people with whom we are communicating, is their learning style. If we understand about people's learning styles, then we can design a communication that is appropriate for them. Now, there are 4 adult learning styles: visual, auditory, read-write, and kinesthetic. Most people have a strong preference for 2 or more. Some people they're really strong in only 1, and some people are really strong in all 4. But most people have a preference for at least 2 of them. So what are they? Visual learners. Visual learners prefer their communication in pictures, line drawing. So you want to show concepts in graphics. You want flowcharts. Fantastic. Visual learners love flowcharts. Visual learners love video. Love it. But if you're stuck in a more, word-oriented kind of communication, you can also support visual learners with tables. Tables are graphics. A well-designed page, whether it's a physical page or a web page, that's also a graphic. So you can support your visual learners with pictures, line drawings, flowcharts, tables, a well-designed page, and color is important to visual learners. Now, I will confess here, I am not a visual learner. You may have noticed that there are very few graphics in my slides, and that's because I score 0 in visual learning. That doesn't mean that I am not able to appreciate visual, but what it does mean is I am just not a strong visual learner. I'm just not. It's just not like my happy place. Okay. Kinesthetic learners. Kinesthetic learners, we like hands-on stuff. We like do kinds of communication. So if you're going to use written words for us kinesthetic learners, and I am a strong kinesthetic learner, and by the way, I'm not using myself here as an example because I think I'm wonderful. I'm using myself here as an example because I'm handy. I'm handy, so I'm a good example. Kinesthetic learners, we like hands-on stuff. We like do instructions. We like written words to be very descriptive. So we want things that describe textures, things like that. You can do drawings and photos for us, but you've got to show doing or texture or something like that. You've got to show some sort of touchy thing, okay? Read-write learners, and there's, by the way, your first typo. It's free, no additional cost for that typo. Read-writer learners should be read-write learners. More words are better. I am a strong read-write learner, and more words are better. Notice I have lots of words because I do. I do. So lots of words following the writing guidelines, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes because these 2 things come together. Kinesthetic is not similar to visual. Kinesthetic is a hands-on thing. Think of touching, describing texture. Something is rough, something is smooth. Think of videos that show things that move, that kind of thing. Visual is very different. Auditory learners. Auditory learners like sound. So podcasts, webinars, voiceovers, those kinds of things. Auditory people like that. They like things that are that have sound, music. An auditory learner is going to like music. If you have nothing else to give them, they're going to like that. So if you're writing in words, write in a more conversational tone. So as though somebody is talking. If you know for a fact that you have got strong auditory learners, perhaps you make a product that is for sound engineers. Sound engineers, I think we can all agree, just based on what little we know right here, we go, sound engineers. I'm betting they're strong auditory learners. Maybe you shouldn't even give them written content. But if you have to, if you have no choice, perhaps for budget or other reasons, you have no choice but to give them some written content. You can trust them to read the instructions out loud. So if you are in a cubicle space and there is somebody who just seems to narrate their life all the time, perhaps they just sit there and they just talk to themselves all day, they're an auditory learner. Something to think about. They're an auditory learner because that's what they do. Now, the reason I told you about this is because while people can learn in all four modes, all things being equal, people have a preference. They have a preference for learning. There are no wrong learning styles, by the way. So if you're sitting there thinking, well, you know, if people just tried really hard, they could be really good at all four. If Sharon just tried really hard, she could knock it out of the park on visual. Well, here's the truth. I could try, and I have been over the years trying really, really hard to get better at visual. And so I can go from 0, which is what I am on visual. I could go from 0 to, if I tried really, really hard, and I just really tried hard, I could go to maybe 3. Whereas on kinesthetic and word, I score 15, 16, 17. So you see, there is no wrong learning style. And by and large, you're never going to get fantastically good at the ones that you're not particularly good at. Neither will your audience. So your audience, you can't ask them to consume information in the way that they're not comfortable getting it, because they're not going to do that, especially if they're really busy. They're not going to go to the hassle of getting the information in a learning style that they're just not comfortable with. So it's just not going to happen. And they're not going to really understand why they're not happy with that. They're just going to know that they don't like this information and it's kind of hard. Now, towards the end, I'm going to give you a link to where you can go find out what your learning styles are. But something to think about: learning styles, learning preferences, and jobs. You can make some guesses about your audience. Visual kinesthetics might be hairdressers, interior designers, architects, photographers, engineers. Engineers are typically visual kinesthetics, which is amazing, but true. Read, write, auditories might be songwriters, they might be actors, they might be journalists. So people are definitely attracted to various jobs or will use products in certain ways based on their learning preferences. So here's a secret about learning styles. Now that you know a little bit, and I grant you we just did a little bit, but now that you know a little bit about learning styles, here's the secret. You are always going to want to deliver material, information, in a way that matches your specific learning style. Again, my strong learning styles are word-oriented and kinesthetic. So I don't have my camera set so you can't see me, but I have been sitting here waving my hands. And notice I have a lot of words on my slides. I try to put some visuals because I know that my audience may be more visual than I am. Really, anybody is. But you're going to want to deliver material that matches your learning style. And your learning styles may not be the same as the learning styles of your audience. And this can cause all kinds of really frustrating communication issues, because it can. If you've got a boss, for example, who never seems to understand what you're doing, even though you're giving them detailed status reports every week, it may be you're a word-oriented learner, so you're giving lots of words all about what you're doing, and your boss is a visual learner. That may be the problem. Maybe you need to think about giving your boss a status report that is more visual. If you continue to write marketing material that is heavily word-based and it's just not resonating, maybe you should think about adding pictures. Not getting rid of the words, because some of your audience is going to be a word-based learner, but additionally add some words. If you are doing strictly email-based kind of communication with as part of your marketing program, consider adding pictures to that. Consider maybe doing a recording, like a little, just a recording, and putting it on your website and including a link in that email communication for, would you like to hear somebody say this? And maybe you could have like some fun pictures. This can be done very cost effectively. You don't have to spend a ton of money to do that. And it can be very fun. Depending on your brand, you can do it very buttoned down. Or if your brand is more fun, you could do it in a more fun way. But think about that. Start going for what are the different learning styles that we're not addressing, and what can we do to support those learning styles that we're not doing right now. And maybe we don't need to change anything else about our message except to add in those learning styles. Maybe we will get much more, maybe we'll resonate more with our audience if we do that. Okay? So learning styles. And very quickly, I just want to glance at some questions. Okay, at the end, I'm going to show you where your learning styles are, where you can go and take the test. This is not something I made up. This is, very quickly, I've got a couple of questions that people are asking. Well, how can you determine learning? Now, obviously, for your audience, if you're just throwing marketing stuff over the wall, you can't determine it really, unless, for example, you're making sound engineer products. Then you go, well, yeah, probably sound. But all things being equal, you probably need to hit all 4 learning styles in your messages. So whether you're writing product documentation, whether you are writing marketing messages, whatever communication it is that you're doing, you're probably going to need to hit all 4. Do what you can to hit all 4. And I'll be giving you a website link that will not only let you discover your learning styles, but will give you some suggestions for helping people. Because by learning, I don't just mean sitting in a formal classroom or what you're doing, sitting there listening to somebody talk. By learning, we mean consume information. So whether these people wandering through the world, you're consuming information just wandering through the world. I can pretty much guarantee you if you like to sit and read, you are a word-oriented, a read-write learner. If you like things like gardening or knitting or fiddling with cars, that kind of thing, you've got some kinesthetic learning. That kind of thing, okay? All right, so I want to hit clear writing guidelines because this combined with our learning styles really give us the secrets. And I want you to stick with me for just a few moments. I need to just kind of get the foundation so we all understand the foundation, so I can then talk about the advanced steps, all right? So this slide especially is probably very boring for most of us, but it gives me the foundation to move on. All right, let's start with a sentence. What's in a sentence? Obviously, a sentence includes a subject, verb, and then some other stuff. The subject of the sentence is the actor in the sentence. So, for example, our subject is Bob. Then, in English, we have a verb. We have the subject, and we have the verb. The verb is the action of the sentence, which is performed by the subject. So we have a verb here called, that I've decided is runs. Okay? Then we have the predicate, which is the other stuff in the sentence. And the predicate tells what the actor did or where the action happened or a whole lot of other stuff. And this is very simple because I know you all know this. So in this case, we've got a prepositional phrase, to the car, giving us the sentence, Bob runs to the car. Now, in English, we could have stopped it. We didn't need a predicate. In English, you can have a subject and a verb, and you're done. You don't have to go further. Most of our communication is not going to be Bob runs. Most of the time, we're not going to be communicating in 2-word sentences, although the very best taglines do. The very best taglines are very short. So I'd just like to point out that in English, Bob runs, Jesus wept. I mean, we're done, right? We don't need any more. But typically in English, we have more. Now, active voice is critical to engaging writing. It really is. Active voice depends on the subject, the actor, and the actor comes first in the sentence. And this is really, for engaging writing that hooks us cognitively, active voice is important. So passive voice is the award was won by the writers. That's passive voice. We have the writers who are actually the actors of the sentence at the very end. Active voice turns this around and gives us the writers won the award. We are front-loading the sentence with our actor, and then the verb, and then the other stuff. We always want to write an active voice. It is, in English, inherently more interesting. It just is. And at an unconscious level, when you're writing in passive voice, when you're delivering your information in passive voice, you are pushing the burden onto your reader or listener, because if you talk in passive voice, the listener, you're pushing the burden of flipping that sentence around on the person who is receiving the communication. Now, I grant you, for a sentence, the award was won by the writers. The cognitive load, the stuff that has to happen in somebody's head, is not very high. But imagine trying to communicate that whole bunch of important information, all of it in passive voice. The recipient of your communication is not going to get this. They're not going to, because you're asking too much of them cognitively. Remember, it's a busy world. There's 50 things vying for our attention at all times. Why push that burden onto the recipient of your communication when, with a little bit of effort on your part, you could write an active voice and make it much easier for the recipient of your communication to understand you? When I'm training writers to move from passive voice to active voice, I have them start all of their sentences with "you can," or whatever the verb is. But if you start the sentence with "you," it is almost impossible to write in passive voice. It's possible, but almost impossible. And then as the writer gets better, then we do some other stuff. You know, we start with imperative, and we can get a little more sophisticated. But to get that muscle, going, start your sentences with "you can." All right, present tense. Present tense is really important, too. English has 7 or 8 tenses. One of the things I do on Monday nights is I hang out with a bunch of anthropologists, which include a couple of linguists. And apparently, with linguists, if you'd like to start a fight, just stand up and say, "English, 7 or 8 tenses," and then take a step back. So 7 or 8. Other languages have more or less. There's nothing about tense that is, tense really just prevents everything from happening at the same time in language. But there's nothing, Spanish has more, other languages have less. In engaging writing and effective, clear communication, we care most about the present tense. Because in English, present tense puts the action in the sentence in the now. Now is about 5 seconds. The now window where people all agree, yeah, that's now. It's about 5 seconds. Present tense puts that action in that 5 seconds, which makes the action, what's going on in that sentence, relevant and immediate. You only use simple past or simple future when it really is happening then. It really is happening then. And if you try and write everything in present tense, you will quickly discover that most everything can be done in present tense. Very little needs to be done in past tense or future tense. So, a little refresher here. Past tense, Bob ran to the car. Notice there's nothing inherently fascinating about Bob running to the car here. Bob ran to the car. We all go, okay, last week I guess he did that. And I suppose it all worked out really well because we didn't hear anything about it at the time, so there it is. Future tense, Bob will run to the car. We don't know when. Maybe it's next week. Perhaps it's later today. I would like a nap. Do I have time? I certainly am going to get some coffee. I've probably got time because he's going to do it at some unknown time. Additionally, when you're talking about your product, here's a little piece of information for you. If you are talking about your product, and you talk about your product and what it does in future tense, you are, deliberately or not, adding in a note of uncertainty. So what you are saying is the product will do something at some point. We don't know when, really. Frankly, we never got it to work. If you get it to work, could you give us a call and let us know how you did it? If you're doing this in a spec, the report will print. You've added some uncertainty in that spec. So if the people who are coding or building that If it takes 6 weeks for the report to print, technically it fits because it's a will in the future at some point. Not quite what you wanted. Not quite. Present tense. Bob runs to the car. It's right there. It's interesting. It's immediate. It's right there. Has everybody lost its sound? Quick sound check. Can you guys all hear me? Because I'm talking like a crazy person. Yes? Okay. People have sound. All right. Good then. Excellent. Whew. I'm so glad because I thought I'm talking like I'm... Okay. Good deal. Some people are having sound issues. I have no control over that. But most everybody can hear, so that's a good thing. All right. So let's talk about second person. In English, we have some pronouns. We have he, she, it, they, we, I, and you. What we care about in clear communication, in engaging communication, is second person. We are writing to a specific person. We're talking to a person. So we want to talk to them. We don't want to talk to them and call them the user because that's weird. I mean, it's just weird. Imagine if you spent the day talking to your coworkers and instead of referring to them by you refer to them as the user. I'm going to go get some lunch. Does the user want to go? I'm going to get coffee. Does the user want cream in the user's coffee? I know the last time the user had coffee, the user had cream. That's just weird. It's just weird. Don't do that. Talk directly to the people that you're talking to, unless there really is a different group of users, separate from the person that you are communicating with. This typically comes up when you are talking to, for example, systems administrators. They really do have a group of people that they refer to as their users. So when you're talking to your system administrator, talk to the systems administrator. Talk to that person as you. Don't talk to them as, so it's just one of those things that just drives me crazy when I start reading. The user shall. Who is that? I dated a guy once who called me the Sharon to my face. Didn't date him long, in large part because he called me the Sharon. He would refer to me. So what does the Sharon want to do for lunch? And I'd look around going, who is this person he is talking to? Why does she have my name? In English, second person is also easier to read, and it is more familiar and more trusted. And this is built into the language. This isn't something that, we created. It is part of the language. So if you are speaking in English, using you, it is inherently more trusted, more familiar, all of that. Now, if you are writing in other languages, second person may not be where you want to go. I need you to depend on what you know is proper and intuitively correct if you are speaking in German or Spanish or one of those other languages that has, the formal versus not formal you. You need to go with those languages, and I do not speak those languages fluently, and I do not pretend to be a native in those. So I absolutely, absolutely. All right, reader-focused, reader-centric. This is really, really important. Because we are writing to people, we need to keep the focus on our reader. Readers need to care why they need to know this information. And we cannot possibly push onto them the burden of them figuring out why they need this communication. We have to make it clear to them why they need this communication. So I'm using an example here. This is actually a slightly changed, but based on a real example. Widget Blue, I don't know, I needed a product name, so I thought, Widget Blue, right? Whatever. Widget Blue uses tags to talk to other products. Now that is a product-based communication. Do you see how that, and do you see how uninteresting that is? We have no idea why we would care about that. Absolutely no idea. There's nothing in here that is talking to us. It is, however, active voice. It is absolutely, and it's present tense. That's good, but it's product-centric. It tells us what the product does, and we don't care. The other bullet You can use tags to let Widget Blue talk to other products. Notice that we start with you can, active voice, second person, present tense, but it's reader-centric because we've put the reader in there and we've told them there's something they can do. We've given them a reason why they need to know this information, or at least we have given them, we have opened the door to this matters to you because. Do you see the difference? Reader-focused, reader-centric. So not a lot of the system does this, the system does that, unless, of course, the system is the actor, in which case, okay. But most of the communication that you'll be doing, especially with if you're in the marketing world or in the TechCom world, most of that communication is to people, and you've got to engage them, tell them why they care. All right. So this has all been very good, but here's, like, this for me is the transformative moment. We've talked about learning styles, so you've got a sense now that you need to support other learning styles, not just your own, even though I know you know yours are the best. They're not necessarily. We've got present tense, active voice, second person. Here's the thing that's going to kick you over into rocking awesome communication. Short is good. Short is good. Short sentences are easier to understand because there are fewer ideas in a short sentence. So no more than 25 words per sentence. Now, several of you are rolling your eyes. I can feel it. Trust me on this. No more than 25 words per sentence. People who are trying to understand our information, especially people who are new to the information we are giving them, they need to have that information in pieces that are fairly easy for them to understand. That's why short sentences. People who are expert in what it is we are trying to give them are not going to in any way be unhappy that we have given them fewer ideas at a time. Okay? So this is, trust me on this, just trust me. Short paragraphs. Now we all know paragraphs are groups of related sentences. No more than 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph. So really, really tight. Really tight. Notice this is really tight writing. And this is good because this makes you get rid of the words that aren't needed to communicate what you're trying to communicate. So adverbs, they're pretty much gone. Pretty much gone. I mean, you may have room for a couple, but by and large, so, you know, I really, 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 really like chocolate ice cream. That kind of, that crazy communication with a lot of extra words just for the sake of the extra words, those words are gone. Short sections. Obviously, sections are groups of related paragraphs. You want to have short sections. No more than 3 to 5 paragraphs before you have a section heading. This is important. And headings are important because they break the narrative text into chunks. They visually break up the page, making it easier for our visual learners, and it lets people scan the page. And we know, whether it's a web page or a PDF or whatever it is, people are scanning to find the information they're looking for. Give them headings that break it up, that makes it easier for them to find it. And then the headings are also going to show the relationships between the ideas and parts of the ideas. So that's good. I mean, it's a win-win all the way using headings. 3 to 5 paragraphs, put in a heading. It's a good thing. It helps people. All right, obviously we all know about topic sentences because most of us in high school, you know, it made us cry at some point. Well, we're back to topic sentences. Topic sentences your paragraph needs to start with a topic sentence. Because topic sentence explains the point of the paragraph. People are scanning to find the information they want. They scan, they find the heading that they're looking for. Hey, that's kind of what I'm looking for, they say. Then they read the first sentence of the paragraph, and they can decide, is this the information I'm looking for, or should I move on? And if they move on, they're going to move on to another heading or another sentence, another paragraph where they read the first sentence. So you're helping people find the information they want and go on. Now, other sentences in the paragraphs amplify and support that topic sentence. Remember, we're only going to have 3 to 5 of those sentences. So your paragraph can include, it's always good if you can do it, an example that illustrates the concept, or a limitation or a special case your reader should know now that they know about the general class. Now I want to show you an example, and I've got 15 minutes left. So I'm going to let you read that. You probably don't need me to read that out loud. But there it is. Very simple, very straightforward. Let's look at it. Our topic sentence is, another challenge is that business writing follows very specific formulas and structure. That's the topic sentence. It's the point of the paragraph. It's short. It has 12 words. And it's easy to understand because it's got a bunch of short words. The average level of reading in the United States is 5th grade. That's not because in the United States we're non-literate. That's not it. Think of the people who are here who are learning and who are managing the second language or third language or fourth language, because some people show up. That's part of why our reading level is so low for the general population. So shorter words are always good. Again, short is good. So it's easy to understand. These are fairly straightforward words. Think about your resume, for example. We have an example. Using you in the sentence and something simple like your resume, this puts it right in right in front of people. They just immediately picture their resume. Not some generic resume that they may have seen out there, but all of a sudden you've got a picture in your head of your resume right now. For those of us who are kinesthetic, we can feel it in our hands. Because that's, very word-oriented, you can see the words in your resume. Notice this. This is all of a sudden you can relate. Now that we have an example, we pull out the important features to think about. We've created a picture in our reader's head, and we've given them another sentence. That sentence is 21 words long. In case you were thinking, no human being could possibly stick to less than 25 words. Look at how many words we've got here, 21 words. There's a lot in that sentence, a lot. Now, this is, about resumes. This isn't technical. Imagine if this is very technical information. That's a lot of words. We don't want to put a lot of words in things that potentially are difficult. That's less than 25 words. And now, at the very end, we bring all these ideas to a conclusion, which is, in fact, the point here of this paragraph. No sentence in that paragraph was longer than 25 words, and we had 4 sentences total. That was a lot of information. A lot of information. Yes, I have time. I have lots of time for questions, which I wanted. All right, so you've been given actionable steps, things you could literally do. Now let's think about these concepts for video scripts and other communication. We all know from like Twitter that less than 140 characters, right? So definitionally now we're going to be short. Let's think about in Twitter, if we're communicating in Twitter, for example, present tense, active voice, second person, believe it or not, this cuts down in the words on our tweet, giving us more room for the message that we're trying to communicate. Rock on. If you do video scripts and you're thinking of writing the video scripts for marketing, for TechCom, for whatever, and you stick to these rules, your video scripts are going to have more punch. These communication guidelines are they're going to make all of your communication tighter, better, faster, zipper, all of that. So we looked at the 4 learning styles. To find out more about learning styles and to find out your own learning styles, go to www.vark-learn.com. They have an online test that is easy and fast. There are no wrong answers. And something to remember as you're taking the test, it takes like 5 minutes. Select all of the answers that apply for you. So there'll be at least 4 options. If 3 of those are correct for you, select all 3 of them. I have no connection with this website, by the way. I just think that these people are really, really there. Tight writing, 25 words or less per sentence, 3 to 5 sentences per paragraph. Headings every 3 to 5 paragraphs. Active voice, present tense, second person. I cannot emphasize that enough. And everything should be reader-focused. Why does your reader care about this information? And by reader here, just put in recipient of communication. It's just too long for me to write on the slide. Recipient of communication focused. Why does your recipient of the communication care about this information? Okay, I'm not done yet. This is the question part. I want it just for those who joined us late. You will be getting a link to the recording tomorrow. The slides are available on SlideShare now. You should be able to find them by searching for my name, Sharon Burton. I have my email address here, my Twitter, my phone number, and my website. So there it is. And back to, I'm going to leave that bark up for just a few moments while you guys write it down. Okay, I see there are questions, and I am tangled up in tables. Hold on 1 second. Okay, so let me scroll up to some of these questions. All right, so I have an interesting question up. How do you recommend I write in active voice present tense for discussing the actions of an unknown or unimportant actor as part of a computer system? For example, I can't say the system brings up the next signal because the system is not specific enough. It might be, though. For your audience, the system, they may understand exactly what you mean when you say the system. So it is entirely possible that that is appropriate, depending on your audience. So that kind of helped you, but not as much as you were hoping, huh? I'm sorry, but that's true. Your resolution is the next signal is brought up. Sometimes, now that I've talked about active voice, sometimes passive voice is appropriate, and that may have been, depending on the rest of what you're writing, that may be the best way. So I've given you two answers. Your users, your audience may know what that means. For them, the system brings up the next signal, may be specific enough. If it's not, or if it's not relevant, you may be able to do it with passive voice, and that may be okay. What about when you're writing for translation? The guidelines I've given you, writing for translation, works genius. I have had translators want to cry because it is so much easier to translate when the communication is this straightforward and this, like, clear. So, yeah. What else do I have? What about gender? As far as I know, this is all genderless in that there is no male or female here. Got people asking for the Okay, I've got a comment up that says communication can be a double-edged sword and be misconstrued. My comments are, that's what this webinar has been about. It is your communication stands a better chance of meeting the needs of your audience if you are taking into account learning style and you're taking into account the writing guidelines. Because I think it really, really, the learning styles thing for me is huge, because until you understand that you're communicating in your learning style preferences, you can spend days trying to make your boss happy with communication. But once it occurs to you that, hey, wait a minute, every time I walk in my boss's office and ask him or her about something, he or she leaps up to their whiteboard and starts drawing me a picture. Duh, they're a visual learner, and all I've been giving them has been words. Yeah, there you go. That can just huge, huge difference. Huge difference. Where am I at on time? Oh, good on time. I'm so happy. Okay, so how effective do I consider tables and bulleted lists to break down complex technical information? It's beautiful. Tables and bulleted lists are visual, so you're supporting your visual learners. Yay, because anything you can do to support your visual learners always helps. It organizes information and shows it more logically, almost always. Yay, very, very good. I think I love tables and bulleted lists. Even though I am not a visual learner, I use them every chance I get because I know they support my visual learners. And word-oriented learners, read-write learners, also really, really like them. Yes, these rules do apply to content that would be localized in other languages. This really, really, really helps. Localizers do very much like this when these when these communication guidelines have been applied to the content, because the extra words have been taken out and things are clearer and much easier to translate. What if you're writing to two different levels of expertise? For example, a technician and an operator. That is an entirely different webinar. That's about layering information, but these guidelines will apply to them. But that's a completely different webinar. Okay, good. Somebody has posted the link. Roger, thank you very much. What's an example of something to help kinesthetic learners when you're writing words about software? Kinesthetic learners love do instructions, D-O, do instructions. So we're really big on things like click this, scroll that, action words. Kinesthetic learners, we like action words a lot. When I'm writing user instructions, for example, being a strong kinesthetic learner, I always start by writing the do instructions. So I will write the do this, do that, on this, do that, do that, do that. And that helps me understand more clearly what it is I'm writing about, so then I can go and start writing the conceptual stuff. That's just my preference. Again, given that I am a strong kinesthetic learner, that's my preference for doing it. Your miles may vary. Do not think that I am like the most wonderful thing, etc. What do I think about toggles, drop-downs, etc.? Can they be overly distracting to some learning styles? The thing that's interesting about learning styles is, for example, I keep saying that I score 0 on the visual. When I am presented with a highly visual, with a piece of information, I will look at the words, and then if there is a picture, I literally jump over the picture. I don't even see it, because I'm not going to get any real information out of that. A little personal story, give me 3 minutes to tell you. I'm also a knitter. I knit. And for reasons I can't explain, and if you're into crafts at all, you'll understand, I am suddenly taken with lace knitting and finding it fascinating and fun to knit lace. Almost all lace knitting is shown using a chart, a picture. And I am really struggling to learn how to do this with a picture. I will eventually be able to do it, but I will never be comfortable doing it. And it is really, really, really hard for me. I am much more comfortable with a knitting pattern that has words and very less comfortable with a knitting pattern with pictures. What do I think of including screenshots in software? Screenshots in software are a really good idea when you can do it. I understand for localization purposes, many times you can't, but screenshots are going to help your visual learners orient themselves. So it's really, really going to help them. So yeah. Please recommend a handy reference in printed form that tech writers can use for what? I don't know. Be more clear about that. Do I know of any resources that will categorize different jobs with different learning styles? The website where you go and take your, to go find out your learning style, the visual learner one, the VARC, gives you some examples. So, and then it becomes intuitive after that. You start thinking, well, gosh, this is totally hands-on with lots of picture stuff. So, yeah. Andy, can you contact me offline on that question, because I don't exactly understand what you're asking, and I don't want to take up a lot of time trying to go back and forth on that. Okay, so let me go back to this slide. This is how you guys get a hold of me. We are right at the top of the hour, but I am good with sticking around and answering questions, but I also know that you may need to go. I totally understand that. So, got a question up, says we've been doing tutorial videos instead of docs lately. What do you think about that? I have some problems with videos. Let me say that. let me remind you, I don't do well on the visual. So I'm biased in that regard. As a non-visual learner, I find tutorial videos very frustrating because they're all visual. And this has not got anything to do with my learning style, the problem with videos is you have to watch the whole darn thing. You can't scan it to find that one piece of information you're looking for. So when I have clients who say they want to move everything to video, I ask them to slow down. Let's go ahead and think about moving things to video, because that's probably a good idea. But let's also stop and think about how to support our learners who are, number one, not visual, and number two, are scanning for that one piece of information. So I don't dislike tutorial videos, like, because they're visual, but it's not, you've got to think about your non-visual learners and think about people who are scanning. What are you doing to support those people as well? And the answer may be we're throwing them overboard. It may be because of budget constraints we are throwing them overboard. That may be the answer, and that's because of budget concerns. That may be a very valid answer, but that's something to think about. Technical standards. Should it use second or third person? Technical standards as in, clarify for me what you mean by technical standards. And I'm going to sit here and watch. Actually, I'm going to take a drink of water while you do that. And then I have a question up. I provided a few examples to illustrate my points. Where can I find more such examples? Ooh, that's the big question, and I have no definite answer for you. All right, technical standards for design and construction standards. I would start with second person on that, Alex. See where that gets you. Does it get you where you want to go? Or are there things that can only be spoken of in the third person? And it could be that you mix. It could be that you mix. All right, I'm going to do this. Don't leave yet if you don't want to, but I'm going to do this because I'm going to do this. So hang on, guys. For those of you who are watching the recording, I want to thank you so much for that. Please feel free to get in touch with me, and let's, again, thank DCL for hosting this. They have been extraordinary.